Hello friends, Adam here with FED. Today I want to talk about how Fire Emblem creates tension. And this comes up because of some comments on yesterday's video about Fire Emblem appealing to a more casual audience, more casual fans. Received a lot of comments about the tension being taken out of the series, or out of the games, because of things like Divine Pulse and casual mode, and really making permadeath less important, or less of a focus of the more recent mainline games. So I don't think that's necessarily true, and I want to talk about why that is. But first we need to understand what tension is and why it's important in a video game. So the definition of tension, there's like 5 different definitions. There's like 5 definitions for tension on dictionary.com. The one that I felt fit best for this discussion is this: mental or emotional strain, intense suppressed suspense, anxiety, or excitement. Without tension, you will most likely get bored while playing a video game. Some games do get away with it, like Animal Crossing, not having tension. But Fire Emblem, where the main drive is meant to be making tough choice after tough choice, it really is like essential. If every choice is easy to make or there's no risk involved, Fire Emblem becomes a bland point-and-click adventure. So let's talk about some things in Fire Emblem that create tension outside of the permadeath function, which of course is there, but I think there are other aspects that people tend to overlook in this kind of discussion here. So first are just the little things you deal with hundreds of times throughout a playthrough, but they all add up to being Fire Emblem, making a tense experience. And the first is hit rates. In a lot of Fire Emblem games, you will just have like 100% hit a lot of the time, just because your units are always so much better than the enemy. But there are some games, especially like Maddening Three Houses, harder difficulties in Awakening and Fates. Maybe not Awakening. I don't have as much experience with Awakening Lunatic or Lunatic Plus as I do, say, like Fates Lunatic. But definitely Fates. Echoes definitely has some lower hit rates. And also you could say the same for Shadow Dragon and New Mystery on their higher difficulties as well. But there's a lot of other games, like the GBA games. Actually, FE6 now comes to mind as one that you rarely have 100% hit. But FE7 through FE10, a lot of times you will have 100% hit. I feel like FE3, you often have a lot really high hit, but the enemy does too, so that's an interesting balance there. But anyways, in the more recent games, I think that is a big thing. Your hit rates are rarely 100%, so there always is a chance you will miss. And that is just like a little bit of tension in every, like, just the little everyday moment of Fire Emblem. I think another one to look at is the enemy critical hit. So the player has access to this as well. And it just, most games it just triples damage done, right? But when the enemy has that 2% or 3%, 4% chance of critical hitting, it's not something you expect, but it's something that you have to, honestly, you kind of have to, like, not expect, but, like, wait for. I don't know how to put it. But it might happen. So it's something to worry about, I guess. It's something that brings tension. And then when it does actually happen, it's really disappointing. And then I think, more than that, the step deeper that I think really is where Fire Emblem gets its tension from, again, outside of permadeath, are map objectives, map side objectives, things like rescuing houses and villages, getting to a chest before an enemy thief gets there, a really powerful enemy that appears halfway through the map or something, or is in a kind of far out of the way place who has a special item that you want to get, something like that. That is where Fire Emblem really creates tension, is in the side objectives and maps. And I think there even are rare cases where the main objective of a map can create a lot of tension. You look at the stairway or the staircase chapter in Fire Emblem Conquest, where there's a time limit. You need to get to the top of the big scary stairway with all the monsters or whatever. And it's the time limit. I think it's different depending on the difficulty, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but either way, it feels really tight, and you have to get every single unit out, I believe. Or it might just be corn. Either way, it feels really difficult, and it's really stressful, but the reward for doing that, you complete the map, and it feels good. It feels good. But that actually brings up another point, that there needs to be a reward for any risk or any tension-filled situation for the player. If there is like a really crazy difficult challenge, like a powerful enemy or something like that, and you don't get anything for it, it feels kind of like a slap in the face to the player. It felt like the game was just more difficult for difficulty's sake, rather than you completing a really tough challenge and getting a really sick reward for it. So an example of like a good reward. I think I think every Fire Emblem game does a good job of this. There are plenty of them. Say Radiant Dawn Chapter 2. There you're in a weird castle mansion thing. I don't really get what it is, but the whole goal of the map is to get your healer to a blue tile, for her to wait on that tile, and then you win the map. But along the way, there are a bunch of treasure chests and things to get, little side objectives, and one of the treasure chests is actually right next to the boss. So you can totally skip killing the boss. Really easy. He's not on the blue tile or anything. You can totally skip it, and you don't have to deal with it. But if you go out of your way to defeat this really powerful enemy, you gain free, safe access to this treasure chest. And in this treasure chest is a stat booster, one that gives you +2 strength. And that is a really big deal for, you know, a lot of characters in your party at that point, because a lot of them are really, really weak. But, you know, throw that energy drop, it's what it's called, on, you know, like Edward, that's a big deal. Throw it on Nolan, that can help, that actually really helps him in the long run too. Leonardo, if you want to use him for some reason, past part 3, maybe give it to him. Now, an example of a moment in Fire Emblem where there was a side objective that didn't really reward the player in any significant way. And that comes in Chapter 6 of Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War FE4. So, Genealogy of the Holy War is famous for its massive maps that take a long time to complete, right? There's only 12 maps, and they're all have multiple castles to seize. They all take forever to get done, and that's just kind of how the game's built, and that's not a bad thing necessarily, but in this one instance it is kind of annoying. So in Chapter 6 you go on a long line, it's a long path. You start at the top of the map, you have to get all the way to the bottom of the map, but in this weird little middle section that you can choose to go and seize a castle that otherwise you really don't have to. You can skip it and still beat the map fine. You can go over there and seize it. It takes a lot of time. Really, it feels like it wastes a lot of time, especially since your main character only has 6 movement at that point, unless you give them like the move ring from inheritance or whatever. But assuming you didn't do that, which I'm assuming players on their first time playing through probably won't, that can be a huge just like disappointment. You don't get anything out of it besides you can get a different weapon for Julia rather than the one you would get from just seizing the castle that's along the way, and that weapon, the one from along the way, is just kind of better anyways, I believe. So that's a thing. So that's just a side objective where the reward is really lackluster, and I think it hurts the experience of that chapter for it. Now that's a pretty minor thought, but I think that's really just what all I could think of, because Fire Emblem does such a good job of rewarding the player for going out of their way for these difficult side objectives. Really, when you know that there is a good item or a good reward behind a side objective, that makes it even more tense when it's more difficult to do. So yeah, I think that's the big one. That's basically what I want to talk about. There's other things, you know, just like having like ambush spawns. People brought that up. I asked in Discord why people think there's tension in Fire Emblem, or how is it in Fire Emblem. A lot of people brought up ambush reinforcements, ambush spawns, meaning they appear on enemy phase and act on the same phase they join, which I don't know if that creates tension more than it just creates like frustration for the player. People brought up like time limits in chapters, and I think that has definitely has some merit to it. I think defend maps are a great source of tension when they're done well. You look at Radiant Dawn 313, where there are Lagoos just pouring in from like tons of different places all over the map, and it just one of my favorite maps, honestly. It helps that the music's really good, and I like the characters in that game a lot. One of my favorite games too. But enemies are just coming from everywhere, and they have a line you have to defend. It's not just one tile, it's like a whole line across the entire map that if the enemy crosses it, you lose. and after a couple turns, flyers start coming in with the enemy, so they can just fly over walls. So any choke points you're holding with your units really don't matter anymore, and it becomes really tense about how am I going to kill them, how am I going to protect the line, even though I can't really keep the enemy from just going there. Like there's no way just to block them, and I think that's really interesting. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Why do you think, or how is Fire Emblem tense? What creates tension in Fire Emblem? I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. And please like the video before you leave. Subscribe if you haven't. And I'll catch you next time, friends.